when you start to put on a mask, adopting practices that are not of your own invention, but because you're complying with incentives,
Mm-hmm.
the concern is not that it just ends up hollowing you out inside, because that can happen. The risk is that you actually become the mask you're wearing, and that those behaviors change how you think and change your own beliefs.
Yeah.
Which I think is inevitable on some level. So in any case, that's probably more than either of us bargained for.
Oh, goodness. I've wrestled with this endlessly. And I absolutely hit a period where I felt like, to a degree, I allowed that audience. So at first it was, I wanted to make this video. I think what Bill Clinton does with his eyes is so fascinating. I think it's so interesting that Donald Trump is probably going to be president. And like, I love Game of Thrones. And then it was, well, you guys want more Game of Thrones videos? Let me do another Game of Thrones character. You know, well, you guys really like that one. And what you're describing to me is not just a business struggle. It is a legitimate emotional, spiritual struggle to be like, do I choose myself in the face of the world offering me all of this temptation to be something else?
Mm-hmm.
And there were periods where the answer to that is I compromised. And it's like, you know, I didn't kill anyone or do anything, but I made the video that I didn't really want to make, and it did really well. And then, okay, well, got to make another one.
Yeah.
And I burned out. I had to step away for years and didn't make videos for years because I believed that I hated making videos. And what I learned was that no, I hated losing my creative well as I chased approval and views and more.
Let's talk about the timeline on that. You are, let's see, let me see if these are lining up. So you're in Vegas. You begin to make these videos, which you enjoyed making, about Bill Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose Bill Clinton came maybe even prior to that, but using, to use your term, fame jacking.
Mm-hmm.
So Jon Snow, real characters or otherwise, Keanu Reeves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Keanu Reeves came later. But in any case, those videos start to do very well. You realize that you can offer the higher priced products up front.
Mm-hmm.
Or reasonably soon with testimonials, and you get conversion. You don't have to lead someone through a 12-step process.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose what I'm wondering is, what does the trajectory look like from there? And how long was it before you decided, I just can't do this, I need to take a break?
It's so funny. You know this. There's two lines. There's the line of when you've created the value, which is like, I created the value sleeping on the couch in Brazil. And then there's the line of when the money starts coming in.
Yeah.
And so there's a delay, right? So you're creating the value and then the money comes in later. But there's also a delay on the backside, which is you stop creating the value, but the money keeps going up. And this is every cash cow business, you know, that starts cannibalizing itself and not treating customers well, but is still, when Marvel makes the next sequel to Marvel movie and it does well, and they don't realize that they're eating their own future.
Mm-hmm.
Around, I would say the flip for me was 2018 to when it shifted from, I personally want to make these videos and I'm excited and I'm learning something in every video, to, oh, I've learned what makes them clap. And now I want more claps.
Mm-hmm.
I want more clapping. The money was secondary, but it's like, oh, they like it. They love me, right? Every video bigger.
So that was a few years after starting the channel at that point?
Yes, and I've been doing it weekly. And there was an authentic drive to do it weekly that's then slowly shifted. And it became, I don't want to do this. And then it was, I definitely can't do this. And I, at the time, so many other things were going on in my life. We can go into it or not, but there was a moment probably in 2018 where I needed to have a conversation with my co-founder that said, hey, I think we're no longer in alignment with this business. I've been driving the growth with these videos. Your projects have not succeeded in the same way, not for the sake of money, but for the sake of honesty. We have to have a talk about our 50-50 split.
Mm-hmm.
But money was never the drive. The drive was always be with my friends in Brazil. And so I didn't care. But there was as my own inability to have sincere, authentic conflict crept in to the business, it cascaded downwards. So I'm avoiding having a difficult conversation with my co-founder. We hire somebody else to cover that up.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out years later that we hire somebody who fabricated a bunch of stuff and stole money from the business. And all of it was just from this core pattern of not wanting to face the problem and just wanting to squint at it and say everything's good, like the money's coming in, people like it, etc. And so what happened was, and again, I was so happy, broke in Brazil, sleeping on the ground, unable to afford food. And then I had the experience, the cliched one of, I've made more money than I've ever made. Everybody wants more. They think it's all great. And I feel like shit. I feel awful.
Yeah.
And then I have a breakup right before my 30th birthday. And I'm going to collapse some things. We can go into anything. I am invited to an ayahuasca retreat.
Mm-hmm.
I have been, having these issues that have not surfaced. I don't smoke weed. I don't drink. I'm straight edge. Fuck it. I'll give it a try. I go head first into this ayahuasca experience with no idea what's coming. And that starts what has now been a 7-year process of completely turning my life upside down and having to face everything that I hadn't looked at, which was, of course, these things in the business, but even more importantly, the patterns of avoidance and people pleasing and seeking that had been birthed in my childhood.